And welcome everyone to game number 3 of the MSL Code Silver Winners Bracket Finals. We have here on Coral Sky Islands a matchup, once again, between the green Zerg player, Bean, who brought the noise in game number 1 but couldn't handle the power of this pink Protoss player in the top right-hand corner, Glenn, in game number 2. Bam. See what I did there? Awesome. I just want to point out that this map, Coral Sky Islands, is not one that I'm very familiar with, although it does have a cool, like, skull flower thing going on here in the middle. I appreciate that, and also the fact that there's totally units hanging out down there. There's, it looks like Coruscant, if any of you, when I say if any of you have seen Star Wars, I mean for all of you that are giant Star Wars nerds, that's what that reminds me of. And also right here, I see, this is a monkey. There's little eyes right here, a mouth, some ears, and a hat. I don't know. Maybe some hands out here. I don't know if anyone else sees that, but I see a monkey on this map. I've not seen this map before. I just looked at the mini-map and I saw a monkey trying to give me a hug. And I giggled. I also want to point out that I end each of these videos with, hang on, we'll be right back with another video. You're watching them on YouTube. I don't know why I say that. It's me not being a very good caster, so I apologize. However, it's free, so you shouldn't complain too loudly. And as a side note, I hope to, at some point in time, be able to afford, or if, in fact, finally purchase Heart of the Swarm. So, embarrassingly enough, I don't actually have Heart of the Swarm, because it turns out you can cast games without Heart of the Swarm that are Heart of the Swarm. And since that's what I've been doing the most of recently, I just haven't had the time or inclination to purchase Heart of the Swarm. I know. It's unfortunate. And with the new spawning ability, and the fact that I generally play Terran, although frequently play random, it doesn't bother me to play Terran in the Starter Edition version when I play with some of my friends. I'm just so lazy. So one thing to note here of this map is the fact that it's got a relatively normal-sized choke into the natural. This is 3 or maybe 4 buildings across. Pretty normal. This choke isn't actually a single choke, it's 2, and that is going to cause some interesting play here in the future. Also, the third base is like ridiculously far away, no matter who you are. The Forge, or the Nexus First, will go down, and it looks like the drone does not get that block. Instead, it looks like he's going to be a little bit delayed, as he has forgotten to build a hatchery because he's already built his spawning pool. He built a gas geyser. There's no units in it as of yet, so that could be a problem if he's wanting to get fast speed, but instead he just wants lots of lings. He's going to go try to put the hurt on his opponent. His opponent, in the meantime, doesn't even have a completed wall and doesn't have any way of producing... Oh, he does have one gateway. Not sure why that gateway wasn't part of the wall. That would actually be a really big deal. And this Forge, he needs to make this an actual wall. Like, absolutely, he needs to do that soon. The other thing is, when this comes in, this was a very early pool, although there's drones behind it, so it's not entirely committed. He has 6 links. Ah, the Zealot there. He's going to be a hero. Stay, hold position. Oh, nice. Lost the Zergling without taking any shield damage. An excellent micro here. Check this out. Pulling back the injured ones. That only works while you still have uninjured ones around. But it looks like he will, in fact, make his way in, but 2 very injured lings are not going to be a huge problem here. In fact, drone probes are going to kill them. They're going to do excellent micro. Way to go, Bean. Bam. Look at that APM. Almost identical. These players are clearly evenly matched. It's because everyone knows that you can gauge players and their skill by their APM. I say that tongue-in-cheek, as that's totally false. Although, generally, you can use it as a broad stroke way to compare players that you've never heard of or seen before. If you look at them, and one of them has 380 APM average for the whole game, and the other one has 12, I think it's pretty safe to say I know it's going to happen there. But within leagues, it's common to have differences and still have players of the same skill. So, and I heard Day 9, once again I talk about Day 9, you should go watch some of his stuff. I don't necessarily say that it is all safe for work, or at least maybe not safe to say you should watch with your 6-year-old children. But he's got a lot of really good analysis, and some really funny stories occasionally. And in this particular case, he was telling about how he believed that most players could get away. You could you could be in the upper leagues, somewhere in Masters, Grandmasters, with only needing somewhere around 80 APM. He felt like once you had that much APM as a minimum, you had the ability to do basically everything you needed to do, although of course additional spare APM really helps out in those battle scenes. But as right now there's no battle scene happening, we instead just have overlords with nasty spikes hovering outside of this base that is rapidly gaining a little bit of tech. We're seeing some production really start to kick in. The worker count is in fact an advantage for Glenn. We have upgrades out of both of these structures. We have units being produced. We have additional gateways coming down. We have a robotics facility on its way and a stalker way out of position with no kills. That's fine though. He maybe likes the sights over here. Check it out. Oh man, that's a crazy looking freeway system. I recently moved out to California, and I can say here that I hate all of the freeways. They're the worst things in my life, and I'm really happy that I get to ride my bike to work because I can pretend that I live in a smaller town without traffic. It's awesome. Plus I get exercise on the way to work every day, and it takes me 6 minutes. There is the occasional danger of swallowing in a bug hole on the bike path, though. It's painful, and it makes you look ridiculous because now all of a sudden you see people looking at you funny because you're choking on apparently nothing. Big thing here is that the baneling nest went down a little while ago, and that these are going to be banelings. So we are going to have a baneling bust, everyone. Units, we have 22 lings, 10 banelings. We have force fields, which force fields are really good against banelings, as banelings cannot break them down. The question is he going to see it? He has no idea that this is there. Absolutely none. Oh, no, he should see it. It's possible that he can see it. Force fields! Force fields! Force fields! Force fields! Force fields! No force fields. That didn't actually work out. But it's not going to be the end of the world, although we should see some... Nope, no more production. The cannon in the back. Awesome. That was to protect against mutas eventually, and the hold position micro on the probes is working okay. It didn't actually prevent most of the lings from escaping. A hold position micro, for those that don't know, lets your probes actually lock in the opposing units, so when they try to move away, they get stuck, and so they're a lot easier to track down. So the baneling bust didn't really work, but it didn't really not work. So I would kind of call that a wash in terms of what happened. He did lose lots of units, but now there's a gaping hole. So the units lost is definitely going to favor Bean at this point in time, but because there's that hole in the wall that still hasn't been fixed, interesting. Gonna make a more complicated wall out of a simple one, but that's doable. So as Bean does this is very dangerous. As if Glenn holds well, this investment is not going to go well. He's now behind in economy. He's down in tech. There's basically nothing else going on because he has to spend so much gas on those banelings. Which, speaking of needing lots of gas for banelings, why are these not full of workers? We do see banelings against light armor and buildings. It's great. We have force field though, and that he is now completely aware. Ooh, he could go out and take him out totally right now. He's got enough things. So this should be pretty good against this continue attack at this point in time. 8 more banelings on their way, and some more cannons. Turns out you can't build cannons under a force field. That's kind of how it works. He needs to continue macroing. Behind this, we do see some additional gateways. We see some robotics bay going to try to go up. The force field. Okay, he did get a force field up that actually saved some things. Excellent work. Baneling's really not good against giant crystal-like force fields. It was painful. He needs to rebuild that wall. There you go. Start building the wall thicker. Against baneling busts, you just need to have layer after layer, and force fields help so much. The Colossi that should be coming out here soon is really important. We see +2 already down. And we see +2 down and going for his opponent is at the same time. So both of these players have been continuing to do stuff behind this, but I want to point out the food difference. Generally, ZVP games or PvZ games are generally considered even if the Protoss player is down by 20 or so food. You generally count it. If they're the same food, generally you say the Protoss is ahead. So in this case, I would say that Glenn is definitely ahead. Looking at the units lost, check this out, 4,000 to 1,100. That's a big difference. Force fields, where's the force fields? Banelings, baneling, oh. If you don't know what that is, you should look on YouTube for banelings and laugh at Husky a little bit. Moving out and about is a little bit dangerous, although a lot of these units are really, really not affected by banelings very much. There's some zealots, some zerglings are going to make their way in. The banelings, the slow banelings, they're going to be caught. They're going to all detonate into a single immortal. It takes absolutely almost infinity number of banelings to kill a single immortal. Remember, because all damage that hits the shield gets taken down to 10. So you need at least 10 banelings to take the shields out on an immortal. And then they have 200 hit points of non-light armor. So it takes a while. So that actually went just about as poorly for Bean as it could. He's now starting to take that base. This is something else I was going to bring up earlier, is that generally Zergs need to be up on their opponent by 1 base, and he's been an equal number of bases for this whole time. And he's been producing units that suicide and don't do very much. If they don't get good connections, they're not worth it. I can just say that. Banelings, they either are super worth it or not worth it. They're not generally like, that was okay. Depends on the connection. We've seen games here in our very own MSL where banelings changed the outcome of an entire series. In fact, the winners, the grand finals in the Code S last season were changed. The outcome was changed by a few simple banelings, but if they don't get that connection, they are kind of not worth the investment. And you can kind of see that here in this game as the units lost the resources. It's just so much in favor of Glenn, and it's because a lot of those banelings hit things like, for instance, there was something like 7 or 8 banelings hit this immortal and did absolutely nothing. So instead, if he'd sent 7 zerglings at it, it probably at least would have taken out the shields. But the baneling bust, it was a good idea. I'm not trying to knock that. Baneling busts when you see your opponent's walled in, and you see banelings do 80 damage against a building, and so you get enough banelings, you can just simply steamroll your way in. The problem against doing that with Protoss is that Protoss have force fields, if they're a competent Protoss, that is. And so because of that, it causes a lot of problems later on in the game. And see, this little Zergling is being an absolute jerk. In fact, Glenn is confused. He's tried to build this like at least 3 times, and he's continuing to build pylons all over the place, and Photon Cannon is trying to figure out what's going on there, as I don't think there is an Overseer on... Not Overseer. I meant an Observer, but there is an Observer, actually. Excellent. We see the Warp Prism getting ready to be out and about on the map, and the other thing is that we saw an Ultralisk Cavern done, and we do see the chitinous plating, which this is +2 for Ultralisks, with the additional +3 that's already being researched. So this is +5 armor for Ultras, and they start out with, I do believe, 1 or 2 armor. So basically, smaller units do nothing to them, but luckily Immortals have 65 armor, because they are already at +3, +2, which is a little bit scary. Now, finally, okay, so he is planning on getting that expansion down. The Warp Prism, where did the Warp Prism go? 4 Ultras. Now, this is the first game, actually, that Bean has had the opportunity to get all the way up to where his upgrades have always said that he wants to go. Every single game, you see that Bean neglects ranged attacks, as he doesn't like units with ranged attacks. Zealots here chomping on a whole bunch of Zerglings, but the Ultralisks get a chance to do a little bit of nomming of their own, and that was actually a decent engagement. Zealots against Zerglings generally goes in favor of the Zealots as long as they don't get a huge wraparound. But now he's also revealed the fact that there are in fact Ultras on the map. So Ultralisks should mean additional production of Immortals. Although Colossi are not the greatest. And Force Fields don't work against Ultras because they break them down. So the cutesy defense doesn't work, and oh my goodness. Oh, thought that was... Saw that out of the corner of my mind. Yes, the corner of my mind. So good I see things with my mind. What am I talking about? I thought that was a base. If anyone's been watching any of the IEM Shanghai, it was done, I do believe, 2 weeks ago. Some absolutely insane games were in that series. You should go watch the videos. They are on Twitch TV, I do believe. And Polt versus Hyun, oh my gosh. Polt is one of my favorite players. He's super good. He lives here in America. He actually speaks English that I can understand, which I consider a positive thing. And he plays an impressive Terran. I do believe he's one of the more underrated players out there, even though he is still quite well regarded. But Hyun, one game, expanded to his natural for his first expansion. It was a crazy game, and then another crazy game number 2, but it looks like now a Hyun-style crazy game attack is going to be coming on, and I think this base is actually going to be forfeit, as the army is not close enough. Although, perhaps if he responds in time. The links here, do they actually have... They have +3/+3. Zerglings are so good with +3/+3. The Ultras kind of getting caught by themselves. The blink back is going to make those Ultras go back so quickly. I need to retreat, see if he can get away with that. Look at that. +6 armor. That's amazing. +44 damage. Bam. They're so good. But Immortals basically kill things too fast. It's almost like cheating. Especially armored units, and that's basically what was happening there. Is the Zealots and the Colossi cleaned up the Zerglings so quickly that the only things left were 4 Zealots, or not 4 Zealots, 4 Ultras, and Ultras, while good, cannot take on an entire Death Ball on their own. So I'd actually really like to see these Ultras collected and saved, and also you want to find an engagement where the Protoss are not in a straight line. If any of you have ever seen The One featuring Jet Li, it's a sci-fi movie about a kung fu guy who is Jet Li and another kung fu guy who is also Jet Li. And it's basically alternate universes, and when one person dies in one universe, the other person in the remaining universes, gets their power. Look at all the Zealots. The Zerglings evaporating. With 2 Colossi with +3, they just melt Zealots. And Zerglings. Mostly Zerglings in this matchup. We do have another engagement up here. Another Zealots going ahead. Oh, why the Ultras could have cleaned that up easy. It's okay. Send the cannon fodder. Okay, there they go. They're going to go take that out very quickly. Yeah, anyway, so the One, Jet Li. One of the people that ends up being Jet Li ends up preferring to fight in straight lines and is very powerful in straight lines. The other one that is Jet Li likes to fight in circles because he has more space, and that becomes a very important part of the finale of the movie. And I feel like this is actually a little bit of what we're seeing here. We have the melee units of Bean all the way upgraded, doing lots of damage. In fact, does he have? Oh, yes, he does have Adrenal Glands. So these are actually Cracklings, full-on Cracklings, and Cracklings and Ultras need to get surface area to be good. Where the Protoss, they like to fight in straight lines because the Colossi can stand back and do lots of damage at the front. So you're going to see very different engagement styles, but it looks like instead we're going to have a base race. And Ultras, just come on, chomp through those buildings. Look at the damage that Colossi is doing. However, look at the damage that these Colossi are doing. The Ultras here, I think, should be able to make their way through here in just a moment. And yeah, as soon as they get enough surface area, they're going to start going to town on that, as they do terrible, terrible splash damage. Look at that. Colossi. Boom. Done. This could actually be a pretty close base race. Oh, with the mass recall. Look at how much damage those are doing. But now, the Ultras should be taken out immediately. Man, I was hoping for a full-on base race, and instead we got a whole bunch of roasted Ultralist guts. Whew. That was painful. 77 food to 106. Recalling right on top of the Ultras actually gave the Ultras a whole bunch of damage while the units were being recalled. So it's actually not as all lost as it could have been. Although with the economy of being almost non-existent in terms of the amount of money, I guess he's got lots of gas, just not much income. Let me see. Actually, the worker count. Wow, neither player with very much income. This could actually get pretty hairy for both sides. It's not actually clear to me which way this is going to go. Continuing the creep spread, that's a great idea. Going ahead and getting some of those corruptors, I'm not sure if I actually don't like the corruptors. I can say I don't like the choice for the corruptors here. There's only 2 Colossi, and unless you have the ability to go to Broodlords, they kind of end up being wasted, and then Stalkers blink under them and kill them, which might happen there. No, it looks like Glenn is going to go for some additional aggression, as his opponent doesn't have anything really that can handle this. And I guess in his defense, at this point in the game, with the way his tech is set up, there's not very much he can do against this sort of Colossi-focused death ball. And that's really actually the problem. Crackling is once again killing things so fast. This still could actually go pretty evenly. It's really a little bit unclear. This is a much slower number of units, but it's very powerful. If he expands though, and he's continuing to be all over the place, these lings could clean up this and nothing flat, as long as some additional lings. No, those lings needed to go and do something else, like win in a base race. The Corruptors, this is what I'm talking about. Corruptors, so sad they can't contribute. They could actually, I think, contaminate or corrupt, as contaminate's not the right ability. So this is actually full-on base race mode. Full-on base race. There is now enough money for another hatchery, and that is what we're going to see here. But he needs to do that quick, as there's only a few more buildings left, because remember, creep tumors don't count. Wow. Okay, so the Lynx, continuing on. Go Lynx. Immortals and everything, continuing on. Go everything. There's enough energy for a recall. I think that is what you'll see once this happens. I think you'll see a recall, so he doesn't lose his entire base. Because he thinks he should have won, but now he doesn't know where it is. The proper thing to do would be to recall, because you can beat this engagement in a straight-up fight. No, remember that you have a recall, and this is Heart of the Swarm. This is going to be so sad to me if he loses, because he decided to walk across the map instead of teleport. He doesn't know where his opponent's base is.
Base is under attack.
Oh, he doesn't know. Come on. Wow. Just recall. Just recall. Recall. Okay, this might actually get right down to the wire. This is getting a little bit ridiculous. Okay, is it going to recall? Oh, come on. You're killing me. This is hurting me so much. It's causing me physical... Okay. Whew. That's causing me physical pain, and it looks like he should be able to clean that up, and then once those lings are gone... Wow. There shouldn't be much of a competition after this. The recall! Yep, turns out the recall changes things and Heart of the Swarm. So you can be everywhere and still be back. Once again, bringing it back to that, how Heart of the Swarm is about where you be at the same time. And that was a very close game. I feel like overall, the decision to stick with the Baneling Bust attempts, the first one I liked, the second one I could get behind, the third one I wasn't behind, and that kept him on two bases too long, and I feel like that hurt him. And the other thing is that the composition he goes for with the Ultra Ling, while solid, there's not enough tech units behind it. He goes for very beefy military units, but without any sort of Infestor, Viper, anything like that to augment his army. It ends up hurting him in the long run. So, okay, looks like Glenn's going to go up 2-1. I'm excited to see game number 4. Are you? It's a rhetorical question because this is on YouTube, so